new voices. The next one on my list is Jeremy. Are you here?
Present.
Thawed out from the baseball dedication. Last time I saw you, we were both shivering. Bill Smith.
This is Scott Chandler, proxy for Bill Smith.
Okay, got it. I'm going to go down my paper list. Stu Klein. Not yet for Stu Klein. William Carpenter or somebody from Lafayette Police. Okay, Mitch Langford.
Present.
Thank you. Either one of the Adams. Is it going to be Adam Keister?
Adam Keister, yes, I'm here.
I see you listed here. Good, thank you. And I think Bryce popped in from City Bus. Is that right?
Yep, I'm here.
Good. And then from Tippecanoe County Sheriff, either Rob Hangy or Woody Ricks. Sometimes Woody is the one. And am I missing anybody? One, two, three, four, five. I have 6 present. West Lafayette Police, I guess I missed them. Jason, I think I saw you listed.
Yep, this is Jason, I'm here.
Good, that's 7. I think we're ready to go. And if anybody else pops in, I'll keep looking at the people list here. So let's get started. Call the meeting to order for April 21st. Let's look at the minutes from March 17th as distributed and see if there's anything there that needs to be corrected before we go to a motion. Well, we can do the motion first. Who wants to move approval of the minutes?
So moved, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy. And then Mitch, you want to second him? Did Mitch sneak out?
Mitch, second, I got it.
Okay,
I had my mute button on.
It's kind of traditional, yeah, that I go to you or to Stu. Okay, anything about the minutes that we should talk about before we vote on them? Hearing none, I'm going to, I guess the procedure here, I'm on various committees, subcommittees. We go through a roll call, and this is one of those. So I'm going to go through it quickly, and you can vote yes if you want to approve the minutes, no if you think they're not fit to be approved. So I'm voting yes for the minutes. Dave Hiddle? Yes or no?
I don't think I'm a voting member.
Let's see. You're right, you're not a voting member. Sally's been sneaking in a vote all these years.
Wow.
So you have to go back and review everything. Okay, Jeremy, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Scott?
Yes.
Thank you. Is Stu Klein or somebody here for Stu? All right. Mitch is here. You vote yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Bryce, yes or no?
Yes.
And anybody from the Sheriff's Department, are you here? I don't see anybody on the list. So the minutes will be approved via roll call vote unanimously. Okay, next on the list is Greater Lafayette Northern Connectivity Study, US 231. Somebody from the Lockmiller Group is going to make a presentation. Is that true?
That's not quite accurate.
Okay.
So they did make a presentation earlier this month at the policy board. So
Okay.
what we're doing today is just reporting to this committee on that update that they gave, which was pretty brief. Basically, all they really said was that we're getting close to launching a stakeholder committee that will be meeting hopefully within the next few weeks to kind of have a kickoff for that. They are still working through some details about this project within NDOT because it's using the PEL process, the planning and environmental linkages. So they were working out some details on that. This is kind of one of the first ones that's been done by NDOT using this process. So there is still some bumps to smooth out, I guess, so to speak. So that's all that I have for an update. Anyone from NDOT have anything they want to chip in on this?
Well, you hit it as far as I understand where we are. I don't have anything to add as far as where we are in the process. I do have one minor comment that I would strike the US 231 from the name of the study so that it does not appear that we are trying to predetermine any name, function, or location. I understand why it's there to kind of help us understand what the study is, but I don't think we want to have that as part of the title.
Okay, so your suggestion is when the minutes come out that would not appear as part of that title.
Correct.
Okay, thanks for that, for pointing that out. Tim, anything else on that one?
Not that I have, other than to say, Scott, that we are aware of that. We just put the US 231 in for this to kind of orient people to where we are. But we do understand that we don't want to enter this study kind of prescribing the solution before looking at the corridor and exploring all options.
So
Yeah,
Tim,
I figured you did. I just wanted to make a note. Thank you.
Yep,
Tim, you
that
said
is a
this
very
was
good point.
presented to the policy committee?
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Dr.
You
Fricker?
said this was presented to the policy committee?
Yes, that's correct. Earlier this month, that we had someone from Mothmuller at that meeting, and he made a brief presentation.
Just for their information, no action taken.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Move on then to access permits. Are there any?
We have two major permits in Tippecanoe County. One is an ongoing permit with US 52, the Speedway gas station. Updates to the plans have been made from our last revisions. They've been resubmitted and are in progress. They're in review. We're moving forward. Unless there are additional questions, I think that permit will continue to move. There is a new permit with Old 52 or Sagamore Parkway in relation to the Yeager Road project. As I understand it, it came in as maybe three smaller permits. It's been combined into one sewer, electrical power work, and then some work at the approach. So that's all been combined into one permit. The application's currently in review status. Those are the two permits that I have to bring today.
Okay, thank you. But there was no action until a future meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay. So item 4 on the agenda is to amend the fiscal year 2020 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. Now, that is traditionally a Doug thing. Is Doug Pode there?
Yes, I am.
Good.
So kicking off, we have two amendments to the current TIP I'd like to bring for this body. The first one is a request from Tippecanoe County. Last September, NDOT sent out a notice of funding available for local rural projects, what we typically call Group 4 funds, and they're similar to our STBG funds. And funding for these new projects will be for fiscal year 2026, so substantially out there. Tippecanoe County submitted 4 requests, basically for the North 9th Street Road corridor. One request was to rehabilitate the road, and this would have been between just north of Sagamore Parkway to just north of Burnett's Road. The second request was to basically replace the bridge deck over the Wabash River. The third request included constructing a sidewalk that would bypass the current bridge that's in use for the Wabash Heritage Trail, basically connecting south of the river to the north of the river. And the last one was to extend the trail from the Lafayette City Trail on North 9th Street to the Community Corrections Facility. In early March, NDOT made the announcements, and Tippecanoe County received funding for the bridge project. It was nearly $6 million, as you can see in the staff report. The county was awarded another $533,306 for preliminary engineering. As you can see, the information below in the staff report is for the specific phases for PE and construction. This request is to amend, of course, the current TIP, and it has already been included in the new draft TIP. Just for a bit of information, of all of the projects that were awarded, Tippecanoe County received the second largest award. The largest award went to Hancock County for $6.348 million for an added travel lane project. APC staff recommends approval of this amendment to the policy board. Are there any questions?
So everybody's clear on with these projects and their jurisdiction and the dollar amounts and the timing? Okay, so at this point, I'd entertain a motion that would recommend approval, and it would go on to the policy board. I need a motion to approve.
This is Mitch, so moved.
Thank you. Is Sue Klein here yet?
I'll second the motion. This is Scott Chandler.
Thank you. Any further discussion or any discussion on this one? Explained so well by Doug Pode. Okay, it's time for a roll call vote. There are 6 voting members present. Oh, no, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 present. So again, I will ask for a yes or a no vote on this motion. So I vote yes. Jeremy?
Yes.
Thank you. Scott?
Yes.
Mitch?
Yes.
And that one more is Bryce.
Yes.
This is
Anybody?
Jason. Don't
Oh,
forget me.
sorry,
I vote
Jason.
yes.
Yeah. Did I forget you last time too? Okay. So it looks like we have a 6-0 vote because I actually counted Jason this time. Okay, the motion carries, and this will be a recommendation will go to the policy board. That was
Okay,
item 4.
Well, we have a Part B, a second request I'd like to go over.
Okay,
This request is from West Lafayette. There's 2 parts to it. This is in regards to the Sagamore Parkway Trail project. In 2017, engineering for this project started, and if you have ever driven by this area, you know that it's a very interesting terrain, very variable, and in developing the engineering plans for this project, additional work is needed. And it's due because, one, of the variable terrain, And because of that, it was difficult to come up with a actual trail that was compliant with ADA regarding the slope, but that was done. And then also an unexpected need for a bridge over a small creek. Due to these additional or more work that was needed, of course, the cost did increase. The increase was nearly double. Basically, the total was $233,750, and the city is requesting $187,000 in federal funds. Now, looking at the federal funds that we do have available, as reported last month, all of our 2021 federal funds have been obligated, so that does not leave us an option to look at those. Another option would be to delay the additional funding to July, so we can tap into our 2022 funds, but this project is scheduled on a January bid letting, so if that is done, that will unfortunately delay the bid letting, which could jeopardize the funding for construction for this project. Basically, the only option that I can see or come up with is tapping the additional funds from the Coronavirus Response Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. That's a mouthful. Last month, we discussed those funds. This area received $462,317. And then, of course, we allocated those funds in the draft tip. If the board decides to approve this, of course, we will have to relook at our allocation for the draft tip. We'll have to do that anyway, which is next. Some good news is that we are receiving additional federal funds. We received information regarding our update for 2022 and beyond. Basically, for 2022, we're getting roughly 111,000 in STBG funds and a little over 33,000 in transportation alternative funds, and then just a pinch over 20,000 in safety funds. So not enough to cover the full amount, but yet most. So anyway, we'll need to address that when we discuss the draft tip following this amendment. The other change is rather minor. When this project was put together and programmed in the tip, the description location was Happy Hollow to Wabash River Bridge. When NEPA was started with this, they used a more detailed description, and we have been asked to update the tip to match that description. And basically, the new description location is 800 feet west of Soldiers Home Road to the west end of the US 52 Sagamore Parkway eastbound bridge over the Wabash River. So those are the two parts to this request. Staff has reviewed it and recommends approval of this amendment to the policy board. Are there any questions?
And it looks like this will just take one motion.
Correct.
That Mitch is probably the best one to make. Because West Lafayette is sitting there in bold font. Mitch, you want to make that motion?
I would. I move we recommend this amendment for acceptance.
Thank you. Who'd like to help us out with a second?
I'll second it, Adam Keister.
Thank you, Adam. Any other comments on this motion? Again, a roll call vote. And I will vote yes. And Jeremy,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
thank you. Anybody from the county yet? Still not here. Okay. Anybody from Lafayette Police? I'm guessing Mitch will vote yes on his motion.
Yes.
Not, correct me. Bryce?
Yes.
Thank you. And Jason?
Yes.
The motion carries 6-0.
Don? Does Purdue vote also?
Let's see, I represent JTRP. Oh, yeah, well, there's the airport. Is there Purdue, another Purdue?
I was gonna say, I'm here for the airport technically.
Yeah.
Adam, I've been skipping you too. Okay, I gotta get a new list. So you'd like to vote yes and add, so,
I will vote yes.
thank you. 7-0, okay. My attendance sheet needs to be improved. I apologize for that. I'm sick. Okay, Doug, we've been through some of the tip things. Is there anything else on tip that we should? You said up to 2026, is there something to be done there?
Yes, the next staff report that we have is regarding the new draft tip, which is from fiscal year 2022 to 2026. And as I just recently mentioned, we are going to have to unfortunately revisit our allocation with the approval of allocating some of the COVID funds to kind of shorten, put a short name to it, to the Soldiers Home or to the Sagamore Trail project. We're going to have to make some adjustments. And then, as I mentioned, we did receive updated funding information for fiscal year 2022. Basically, it's the final numbers or final amounts for 2021. The good news is that we are receiving more. So for 2022, we are actually receiving a pinch more because we get to carry over the additional funds from 2021 and use them in 2022. As you can see, I've put together a spreadsheet to kind of help us work through this. There you go. Thank you for bringing that up, Tim. So basically, to kind of work through this process and allocation, you can see for the updated STBG funds, we have a little over $4.1 million in fiscal year 2022, and for transportation alternative funds, 247,662. And then for the following years, 2023 through 2026, we have $4,770,538 in STBG, and then $230,995 in TA funding. So if we start looking at this year by year, we've done in the past, the first little table there for that fiscal year, basically we show no changes to begin with, of course, Sagamore Parkway Trail for construction. The Morehouse Road, of course, we show the full allocation there, more for right-of-way. And then with the reduction of funding down to $275,317, that's the balance of the COVID funding. That would then bring Soldiers Home Road funding for PE to roughly $562,968. What we have to allocate, we do have the $111,758 in STBG funds to add to any one of those projects. And then we have an additional $33,334 to add to, again, any one of those projects. All three are eligible for either of these funds. My recommendation, and this is just a recommendation, is that since we reduced the COVID funding for the Sagamore Trail project, that these additional funds be added to the Soldiers Home Road PE funding to kind of bring it back close to what we had programmed last month. Now, the question is that doable with everybody, or if there's any other options people would like to look at? I made this spreadsheet so we could play with the numbers and make changes on the fly. Thoughts and comments?
Your suggestion made sense to me, Doug. This is Scott.
Okay, so Tim, if you could add the 33,334 to the TA funding for Soldiers Home. And then for the STBG funds, add the 11,758 to that. Okay. So that still does not bring the full amount for the request, which was 846,000. It does bring it up to a little over 700,000. So that's a substantial amount for fiscal year 2022. So does that seem to be doable or agreeable to do that? Okay. Since there's no comments, if that's okay, then we'll scoot down to fiscal year 2023 and look at that allocation. When we did this last month, Soldiers Home Road, the PE funding, it needed a little over $96,000. As you can see, the need is now 138,000, which is fairly close. One change that I did put into the spreadsheet already, and we'll get to that when we talk about safety funds, is that for the Mccutcheon PED safety project, you will see that 275,507. That was the number from last month. And then on the column to the right of that, the number has changed and it went down to 265. I've already made the change to safety funds because there was only one project requesting those funds at the time. So it seemed pretty obvious that those additional funds will go to the Mccutcheon project. So that would reduce the amount needed of STBG funds. See here, the South 9th Street project, we still have $280,000 budgeted in. For Yeager Road, between the two funds, we have still over $5 million. We have the request originally was $4,950,000. So in essence, as you see, we have a balance of $13,971 in STBG funds, and then a balance of $16,667 in TA funds. So the question is, where do we put those funds?
So two things. There's well, are there any constraints on these two amounts, however small they appear?
We could add them to one project. We could add them to two projects. We could add them to three projects. Is that what you're meaning by constraint?
Well, yeah, given, yeah, they, for instance, could you put them in a safety project?
We could do that.
Just as an example. I don't want to overthink this when it's only that amount, especially because we may be back here a month or two from now.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, is there any serious concern about what looks like, given that I'm considering 13,000 and 16,000 to be negligible. So it's, at least that's my opinion. So otherwise, is there anything here that's concerned for anybody in the committee? So we can put those small amounts someplace and not do too much harm.
Hey, Tim, is there one thing we can check real quick? The amount that's now programmed for the Soldiers Home Road PE project in 22, if we add the $708,060 with the 138,140, will that bring it up to the original request of 846,200?
What were
Okay.
those two numbers?
For the Soldiers Home Road in 2022 under PE, the total 708,060. And then add the in 2023 the 138,140.
So that brings it to 846,200.
So we do have that fully funded. Okay. I just wanted to double check that.
So right now, Doug, you're looking for a place to put the 13,000 and the 16,000, or is there something else that needs to be reconciled?
Correct. That's what that's what we need to do, is to allocate those monies to a project or projects.
Mhm.
Is there any project in 2023 that's short of the original ask?
How we have it funded right now, the Yeager Road project will receive a pinch more in federal funds. But the Mccutcheon project is funded right at the request. So my recommendation would probably add it to the Mccutcheon project since it is for construction.
I would agree with that.
Okay,
Is the idea behind that to support any change management through construction?
It could use if the additional funds could be used for construction engineering, it could be used for construction. So I know with those last bids that were open in January for the Parkey's project, since the bids did come in, we did get good bids. We actually used funds for construction engineering. But for the Lindbergh Road project, we did not have enough for construction engineering. So we have a kind of a mixed signal with those. So
Thank you.
and I think I didn't update a cell, the sum for the Mccutcheon project ped safety. That still seems to be the 2 to the left, the total. That one I didn't include, it didn't sum, so I must have left that one out. My apologies. So
and you said it would be back here very shortly with the Yeager Road project having been bumped up a little bit by the COVID or some other federal funds?
yes, it was increased due to the COVID funding.
That's already reflected in this spreadsheet?
Correct. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Since we've allocated those funds, I'd like to go to fiscal year 2024. Well, we only have one request here, but we have a lot of funding. Interesting, I didn't catch this before, but we didn't allocate our transportation alternative funds for 2024. Since we have all of the funding, just one project, my recommendation would be to add these funds to the project, because this is a very substantial project.
Yeah.
As Stu has already estimated it being nearly $6.7 million. So, okay. So now we allocated those funds in 2024. Looks like I missed a box in terms of summing it there in the balance, but that's okay. The overall balance is 0. If we go to 2025, we have several options here. We have, of course, a small balance to obligate. When we allocated the funding for COVID, we split the additional funds between the two projects. That's one option to do with this. I don't have really a recommendation for this project. We could add it to one, we could add it to the other, whatever the committee would decide. Between 2024 and 2025, we would have more allocated than what was originally requested for the Morehouse Road project. So,
Doug, I could see for the Soldiers Home Road project needing more than we requested on right-of-way as we dig into that a little bit.
okay. So if it's okay with the committee, we'll just add the funding to that. And voila, we have allocated those funds. And then for the final year, we have, first of all, we could probably not need to flex any part of our safety fund, so we could eliminate that $4,000 up in the top box, since we won't need those, if that's okay. We could do it if we still want to, but this is still pretty far out. I mean, we could just leave it this way, and we could allocate the funding to the South 9th Street project. It's up to what would ever the committee would like to do.
Can you explain the flex again, Doug? I don't recall.
Okay, when we went through this exercise back in January, there was not enough STBG funds to fully fund the request for the construction phase. So we had to borrow, or not borrow, but actually use a small part, $4,013 in safety funds. We are allowed to move roughly half of our funds over to use in projects like this for STBG. That's what they basically end up as. So with the additional funds, we no longer need to do that. I mean, we can still do that and then just add the federal funds, the additional federal funds to the project as well. I mean, it's, again, a small amount, and there's only one project, so it's pretty straightforward where the allocation should go.
And this capability is not likely to expire. We could still flex the safety funds in the distant future.
Yes, we still can. I mean,
You'll
we will
remember, right? You'll remind me.
Yes, we'll be, since this is in 2026,
Yeah.
we'll revisit this again in 2 years.
Yeah.
So we'll be going through this exercise again. And then, of course, I suspect that changes in costs will occur, and we can make or fine tune those numbers. In essence, what we're doing here is specifically the 2 key years to look at are 2022 and 2023, which we've already taken care of with this exercise for these funds. So I know that was, I appreciate going through that. There is one other exercise we need to look at, and that's, of course, the safety funds. And this is rather interesting, is that now we have an additional amount of funds for 2022 and 2020 and beyond. At some point, we're going to have to discuss what to do with these additional funds. At the moment, we can leave a positive balance but we probably need to discuss either flexing these over to one of our projects in 2022 and use those for whatever reason, or see if NERC would need the additional $20,000. So at this time, we don't have to do that. But if we do need a pinch more funding for the projects that we allocated the funding in 2022 for, we can move these funds over. And likewise, in 2024, the same occurs. We'll have a very, very small balance. In 2025 and 2026, we have no requests. Basically, Jeremy, Stu, Mitch, you might want to start thinking about what projects we could actually use these funds for in the future. The only project that's available to use these funds is the Mccutcheon Ped Safety Project. The project has been approved to build a sidewalk trail all the way up to the mobile home park, which it now does not. That is an option, but you might want to start thinking about additional safety projects to tap into these funds. So,
Okay, any other questions? Because I guess, Doug, we're heading to a motion that would vote to approve these new sets of numbers and their timing and send that to the policy board.
We did have a question come up in the
Good.
meeting chat. This is Aria asks about flexing this additional $20,000 in 2022, if it was possible to flex that entire amount to STBG.
and the answer is yes, we can do that. So if we want to go ahead and actually move that amount over, we can do that. So I guess it's up to the board if you want to go ahead and do that now or look at doing that at some later point in time.
Is there a particular 2022 project that it makes sense to assign those funds to right now?
Tim, if you could go back to the STBG TA. Here are the projects that are listed. So we could flex them to any one of those. If a recommendation is needed, I would probably add that to the Sagamore Parkway Trail, since it is construction, just in case if the bids did come a little bit high. I mean, we would have a little bit more funding for that. So does that seem acceptable to everyone?
I think that's a good idea, Doug. A good suggestion, especially considering the particulars of that project.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I'll make those changes. Now, since we have completed this allocation, what I will do is add all of these changes to the funding tables in the TIP, and then to the individual projects that are listed in, I believe, Table 4. The next step in terms of the TIP is to actually take it to or start the adoption process. NDOT has not made any changes to the development timeline and still would like to have our TIP approved by early May. So we would like to go ahead and move forward. We did receive, as indicated in the staff report, the unofficial federal highway comments, and we have went through all of those comments and updated the draft tip per their comments. The only comments that we have received from NDOT is in regards to adding preliminary engineering funds for about a dozen projects, but there has been no comments or questions regarding the document outside of that. If we do receive comments that would substantially change the document after we go through this adoption process, we would like to then bring it back for readoption. The document itself includes all of the requirements by the FAST Act and its extension. All of the public comments, questions received have been kept in the appendix, and you can actually see it. And then we also have all of the responses. So what we're doing is, in order to maintain NDOT's timeline, we are asking for a recommendation of adoption to the policy board with the update of the allocation that we just did. Are there any questions? Do I need to explain any details regarding this? Please feel free to ask.
So I actually went pretty quickly. It looked like an amendment, but it actually is the tip through 2026 that we're proposing. And this is what you're calling it, a draft?
It's a draft now, and what we're recommending is adoption to the policy board, so that with the changes we recently did and with everything else in the document, that it does meet all of the requirements of the FAST Act. It has, or at least we have, addressed unofficially all the federal highway comments and what we have received from NDOT. So we would like to actually move it forward and have the policy board adopt it at their next meeting. Does that make sense?
Well, to me it does, and if it does to me, must probably is a good chance everybody else follows it as well. So,
Yeah, our big challenge here is kind of the fact that we want to stick to this timeline, but we haven't gotten the comments back such that would have met the timeline. So we're trying to reconcile those two issues. So that's why Doug mentioned the part about we might have to re-adopt this if we get substantial comments from NDOT.
okay. And that could be probably next month or whenever we get the comments, I guess.
At this point, we're unsure. We have received no word as to whether it'll be, as again, next month or 2 or 3 months from now.
Okay. All right, but a motion would be in order to approve what we just did and forward that to the policy board as our recommended draft tip through 2026. Did I make any mistakes in saying that?
That sounds pretty good.
Okay, I'll take a good sounding motion then.
This is Mitch. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mitch and Jeremy, okay. Last chance for comments or questions. Roll call vote. I'll try to get everybody in here. Not forget anybody. Jeremy, yes or no?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody from the county here yet? Lafayette Police? Mitch?
Yes.
Thank you. Adam Keister?
Yes.
Anybody from the sheriff? Okay, Jason?
Yes.
Thank you. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm 6 and there's somebody missing. Jason, did I get you?
Yep, I
Me.
said yes.
Dr.
Okay,
Perdue.
Bryce, I
Bryce.
think I missed Bryce.
Yes.
All
I
right,
vote
got
yes.
it. So 7-0, as they say in British soccer. We make that recommendation to the policy board.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Doug, for setting that up so well. I think we're up to agenda item number 6. The progress report. MPO update.
Yeah, so the first item under there relates to the Thoroughfare Plan.
Okay,
I had hoped that someone from the county highway department would be here because this change kind of came about from a request from Stu. So I'm going to do my best to explain some of the background of it. So basically, currently in the county, when a subdivision is designed, you are allowed to use mountable curbs in that subdivision. Whereas in the cities, we will almost always see the non-mountable curbs. So Stu brought forth the idea of kind of bringing some of the design standards into uniformity. And so what he asked us to do was to take a look at some of the pros and cons of making a change to non-mountable curbs in subdivisions in the county. So we put together that list, which is what's on the screen right now, and it was also included in the packet. We are looking to get some action on this at next month's policy board. I guess I should say by action, I just want some sort of recommendation as to whether this is something we should include in the draft version of the Thoroughfare Plan for comment, or if it's something that should be scrapped before that stage. And that's a significant consideration because we do need to approach all of the stakeholders in this process, and some of those stakeholders do include developers. And this is a change would be a change for them. So we want to make sure that we give them a chance to give some feedback on that if we are proposing that change. So basically what we have today is this is kind of to put this document out there for just public awareness of it. All of the engineers have already been in on the design of the document, but we want to make sure that it's out there and that there's a chance for anyone to ask any questions about this at this time, because we want to get this pros and cons document, I guess I'm going to call it, to the appropriate local elected officials so that they can have some time to consider it before the meeting, so it doesn't kind of take them by surprise. This isn't supposed to be an under the table thing. We want to keep it transparent. So I guess at this time I would take any questions about any items in this document, if there are any. Okay, I'm not hearing any. So Mitch and Jeremy, did you guys have anything you wanted to say about this, or are you satisfied that you can take this to your elected officials as it is, or any thoughts from you two?
I think that this is well put together. I think it states all the pros and cons pretty well. So I'm good with taking it to our side.
Yeah, I agree with Jeremy. I think we got a pretty good list constructed here.
Okay, great. Well, with that, I think this should be finished for this meeting now, and I'll leave it to you guys to take it to your elected officials, and we'll talk more about this at next month's policy board. Thank you, everyone.
yeah, my only question here would be, how binding is this, and has adequate consideration been given to stormwater runoff? If you have I guess I interpret non-mountable to be curb and gutter.
Yes. So there is a section about drainage here.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as your, I guess, first part of your question about how binding it is. So the Thoroughfare Plan, the design standards in that, the final version of that plan will be adopted into the subdivision ordinance.
Okay,
So at this time, we're not finalizing anything because, again, we haven't had an appropriate chance for all stakeholders to give feedback. We're kind of taking the temperature, so to speak, of the policy board on this change. And again, this is sort of why I hoped Stu would be here to state his position. But he and I have talked about this, so it's something he's certainly aware of. So.
all right, thank you. It is a good 2-pager of pros and cons. Okay. Should we move on to the planning certification review?
Thank you. A quick update on that review that did take place March 22nd. It was the review was spearheaded by NDOT. Also had representation from the Federal Transit Administration and the Federal Highway Administration. And it was an all-day thing, pretty much kind of taking the form of an audit where our staff, Tim and Doug, Aria and Maureen, all presented really the operations and activities of the last several years of the department regarding transportation to the reviewers. And it went awfully well, I have to say. I can be kind of objective because I, at that point, was nothing more than an observer. But just based on their immediate feedback, they are pretty much effusive in their praise and even asked if they could use the presentation as a model for other MPOs, which was a great thing. So that's over. We are awaiting formal feedback regarding the presentation and the whole review, and we'll be acting on that when we get it. I think that's all I have to say. Tim, do you have anything to add about that?
Yes, so just a quick side note. So we are supposed to receive a formal report on the results from NDOT. They do have a format that they've sent out for that. They did send us, as an example, the one they had done for MACOG. But as David mentioned, we have not received anything regarding our presentation yet. So when we do, if there are any updates, we will bring them to this committee.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Next on the list is federal funding obligations.
And that would be me, it's Doug again. You can see the one-page report that was in the packet and then also that's on the screen. We did receive updated information from NDOT Central Office, and if you look it over fairly closely, you will see that all of our funds have been obligated. Yes, we do have a small balance of 2 cents for STBG funds and 45 cents for bonus funds, but that's differences because we don't show or allocate our funds in the tip by cents. And again, as I previously mentioned, the previous months, this report will not show the trade we did with NDOT for the $169,011. So in essence, again, all of our funds are obligated and we're good to go. In addition to receiving the information for Lafayette, just kind of an interesting couple facts. They also send information out for all of the MPOs. In looking down the list, we are one of 4 that have obligated all of our funds. There are 5 additional MPOs that have obligated 90% of their funds. Now here's the scary thought. The Terre Haute MPO, they have not obligated any of their federal funds, 0. Michigan City and NERC, they've only obligated 11%. And Bloomington, they've only obligated 44% of their funding. So when you look at what we have done, we are in the good group. So just kind of an update of what's going on. That's all I have on that.
Okay, thank you. We're on to the letting list.
Yes, and that will be me again. You can
Usually it's the
see-
last thing on the agenda, but it's moved up a little bit.
Mhm.
Looks like it.
Well, looking at the list, you see there are 5 projects that were on April 7th's letting, and I'll briefly touch on each one of those. The first project, the State Road 38 ADA sidewalk ramp and construction, that project was actually let to Milestone Contractors. Their bid was a little over $400,000, which was fairly close to the engineer's estimate. And there were 4 bids for that. For the next project, State Road 38, the debris removal, 3 bids. Crackers Demo LLC is the company that was awarded the project for a little over $263,000. Interestingly, the engineer's estimate is over $700,000, and there were 3 bids submitted for that. The overlay on State Road 38 went to Reith Riley Construction for over $1.5 million. The engineer's estimate was $1.8 million, and there were 3 bids. The pending the 231 pavement patching, that bid is actually, or award is pending right now. There were 3 bids. Reith Riley was the low bidder at a little over $146,000. And that was above the engineer's estimate. And then for the last project on I-65, the pavement patching, there were 2 bids. Low bid from Reith Riley was over 1.5 million. And that one and the one from Milestone were both rejected. And it has been moved to the May bid letting. And with that, the construction estimated completion date has been moved to September 15th of 2021. Looking down the list, project 13, the district-wide bridge maintenance project, that has been moved from a July letting to a November letting. And then it doesn't reflect here, but probably will next month for sure. Sagamore Parkway Trail, that's moved or will be moving from the November to January bid letting. And then project 18, and then project 17, and then everything under that through project 27 on the next page are all related to the next phase of widening I-65, and that is still on target for a November 17th bid letting. So that, in a nutshell, is a summary of the 18-month letting list. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, Doug.
Doug, I do have a couple things.
Okay.
Travis Cole sent me a couple of very minor notes in regards to this list
Mhm.
that I guess Shane Spears had brought to the policy board, the
Okay.
previous one. He's suggesting you and Marcy are in contact quite a bit.
Yes.
I'm going to send you an email on some of these minor updates and then
Okay.
suggest that if you have questions to reach out to Marcy.
Okay.
If that's the most appropriate way, then I think that would be easiest.
Sure. Be more than glad to.
Okay.
We usually send emails between each other probably once a week.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Any other business? Have we received any citizen comments? Aria, anybody's been monitoring our citizen comment line? Well, if somebody does sneak in, but as we prepare to adjourn, we will entertain any other input. Our next meeting is going to be, looks like May 19th. And I'm prepared to adjourn unless there's some objection. You probably have other things to do. So without objection, I will declare the meeting adjourned until May 19th. All right. Thank you all for being here, taking the time to participate in this virtual meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.